Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're checking out the just released Golden Warrior kit here, a massive 1/100 scale mecha unit that bears a striking resemblance to another kind of 100 seasons mobile suit there, gold, but imagine sort of like a full armor Kai sort of variation of that. Anyway, very cool design here. The kit looks awesome. We do actually have a second box. It's one of those weird ones that for some reason comes with the box for the main kit, and then the frame parts are all in this separate box because it does have metal parts for the frame in here and some really cool stuff. So we'll go through all of that here in the unboxing portion of the video, and then we'll get to taking a look at the kit itself. But let's go ahead and get into it for today's video. And so yeah, not too much to see here on the outside of the box. It just says Golden Warrior. We've got kind of like this line art there of the head, the face, and that's really kind of about it. So let's go ahead and pop it open here. And inside, we've got our instructions and decals, and it looks like some amendments to the instructions maybe in here as well. Just something to note there for step 3, and just some parts there for the head using a magnet. So it's got a magnet activated LED there in the head, it looks like. Very cool. On the instruction booklet here, you can see a photograph of the build kit, how that's going to look with the markings and everything on there. Looks very nice and gold. On the inside here, we've got our parts list. And it looks like on the parts list, it also tells us what color each runner is. So here, this is a gold runner, this is a red runner here, for example, dark blue, dark gray, so that's nice. It looks like for each step of the manual, everything's going to be in full color, and it tells you not only which runners you need for each step, but which part you need for each step. So that actually makes it super convenient for, at least like for how I do my preparation when I'm just preparing to build the kit. I can just go through here, and I know that for this section, I don't even need to look at all the instructions. I just go through here, cut out these parts from this runner, these parts from this runner, and so on. And then I can just throw them all into my organizer box and build in that way that I do. So that's really awesome. I actually really like how that's organized. And it's cool that everything here in the instruction manual is all in full color. So that looks really, really nice. Yeah, so the frame parts you're gonna like build separately and then have those here that you're just gonna use with this. You've got the backpack and the weapons parts and everything. It looks like more armor, more backpack parts, quite a lot of stuff in here. As you can see, it's like a pretty good sized box. Here looks to be like our decal guide, where all the decals are going to be placed on the kit. That's not in color, but that's probably a little bit easier to see with it not being in color. It's kind of easier to see where all the decals go on there. And the decal sheet here looks pretty nice. Let's take a look. Mostly red and white for the colors of the decals. The print quality on here looks pretty good. The styling of them looks very like Katoki styling as far as that goes. The white ones you're not going to be able to see very well, but all some really nice waterslide decals there. And then we'll get to the runners here in a little bit. There you can see that gold though right off the bat. It's a really nice kind of rich sort of orange gold color. Got some other components in here. It's going to be looks to be like our battery housing and magnets and LED unit there for that. And everything else looks to be like just runners, so let's go ahead and go through those. I just want to say as we get into the runners here, some of the gold-plated runners were like packaged together, but each individual runner has its own like separate pack here just to keep the gold plating from getting scuffed, so that's really nice. I'm gonna definitely keep these in here while I'm going through the building process. But just to go through the gold-plated runners here first. Runner A here looks really nice. The details on there look good. And like I said, I really like this gold color. It's sort of like an orangish gold. It looks really good on there. The B runner, we have 2 of these. And again, it's just more of the gold-plated armor parts there. The C runner as well, we have 2 of. So here we've got more of the gold-plated armor pieces. And lastly then, the D runner, which does look like it's maybe a slightly different color of gold. This one looks even a little bit more orangey, although I'm not entirely sure. It's kind of hard to tell. But D runner, we just only have 1 of, and it's for some of the larger pieces there for like some of the outer armor, I think, for those. But again, looks great. All right, then moving on to our red runners here, E1, F1, and then E2 and F2 here in this kind of darker red color. Looks really nice. Up next is dark blue here with runner G, which we have 2 of, and then runner H, which we have 1 of there for some dark navy blue parts. A couple of smaller runners here for runner I and J. Runner I is in clear blue, runner J is in a molded silver there for a couple of bits. And then runners K through S is all in this dark brownish gray color for all of the inner frame and mechanical parts. So here we've got runner K, runner L, we have 2 of those. Runner M here up next. Just got 1 of those for some more inner frame parts here. Runner N we have 2 of. Some of the equipment parts there, as you can see from some of those larger size pieces. Runner O as well, we've also got 2 of this O runner. And then runner P looks to be like some of the weapons parts on there, but still in that same dark brownish gray as we go on here to runners Q and R, a couple of smaller runners there, but looks to be like still primarily mostly weapons parts, I think, on those runners. And then runner S is going to be our hand part. So it looks like we are going to have fixed posed hands where you just swap the fingers on there, sort of akin to the like Gundam Seed master grades there. So those are nice, I like that. Lastly then, runner T here in this clear dark blue for the visor, and runner Z for our clear yellow parts there for the beam sabers. Looks like quite a cool effect for those. They're sort of like beam katana shaped, really nice, quite unique. So really glad they went with a more kind of unique shape rather than just like the standard beam saber shape that we see from like all of Bandai's master grades and 1/100 scale kits. But as I said, there is a second box included in here. Now this has some more frame parts and then also some more metal parts here. So all these die-cast metal parts we've got in this bag there. Those look nice. And this is going to be the instructions for building the frame. So it's basically like how some kits come with like a pre-built frame. It's sort of like that, but rather than it being pre-built, it's not pre-built, you have to build it yourself, which honestly I kind of prefer, but that's essentially what you're getting with this, is what you see from a lot of other kits as a pre-built inner frame. So basically you need to build this first, because in the instructions for the main kit, it refers to like whole sections of the frame that are already built from this. So just on the paper parts here, you've got the parts list there, and there's a couple of parts that are not going to be used, I guess it looks like, and then all the instructions. So yeah, you need to build this first, because then these sections that you build, you're going to use for the main kit. And our runners here are going to be mostly, again, in that dark brownish gray color, it looks like. And let's see, these are not even really marked, as it looks like each of the parts is just like, so the runner is not marked as like runner C, runner D, it's just like the part number is like part D2, but then you also have C1 on here, C10, and then some of these are just polycaps, so like you can see PC1, PC15 on these, so kind of random there. This runner as well, just the parts are marked just B31, B something, so there's no like runner label up there that would just say B. That's kind of weird. A couple of molded silver runners in here, as well as a couple of more bits there in that dark red. So that's it for the frame and all of the runners and all the parts and everything. Let's go ahead and get to work on building the kit and see how it turns out. All right guys, so here is the kit all built up. It's really, really cool. Looks awesome. And if you guys missed the live stream build, you can go back and check that out. This, as you're seeing it now, is obviously just the base body, and then we're going to add all the full armor parts onto it later on. I just wanted to show you guys kind of the base body, just in case for whatever reason you want to keep it like this and not add the full armor parts on there. You can also pick and choose to which full armor parts you might want to add on. You may only want to add on some and not the entirety of them. You know, it's just kind of up to you. But as it is, this thing is awesome. It's basically like building your own metal build with the weight that it has just from the metal parts, and then all the details and everything that you have going on with there. It's very similar to what you would expect from a metal build, but being something that you can actually put together yourself is something that I really enjoy about this one. So it's really, really cool. Let's go ahead and check it out here in some more detail. But just to focus here on the base kit itself here before we get into all the weapons and accessories, as I said, it does feel quite heavy in hand, and a lot of the articulation points are nice and firm and tight here, with there being one notable exception that I noticed, and that's just being kind of here in the waist section. It doesn't feel like too loose, like it's gonna fall off or it's gonna break, but it does feel a bit loose, just the connection here, this peg between the top and bottom half of the kit. So I would recommend maybe adding something to that just to tighten it up a little bit, whether that be a little bit of paint or glue or whatever you want to use, tape. You can use that joint tightening tape, put a little bit on there, and that will just help that from being a little bit loose at this rotation point there, basically. But as I said, the detail on this is fantastic. You have these clear parts here for in the head and the eyes, and those will light up with our LED parts. Now, there are LED parts that also go in the backpack to basically light up these thruster bells here on the back. I didn't have the batteries for that, so I didn't put those in, but I did have the batteries for in the eyes. And basically, you're going to use this included magnet, and you're going to touch it like right at the base of the antenna. Seems to be the sweet spot for touching that to turn on the LED. Now, if I can get this here, there we go. So that just turns that on. And you can see it doesn't really light up the eyes as much as it does just the camera there on the top, and then not even the full thing, as it is kind of this like long clear part there. but it does add a little bit of light to that, which is a pretty cool gimmick. You can see we can just turn that off. We should be able to turn it off again here by tapping that. But like I said, the sensor is kind of deep inside the head there, so you kind of have to get it like just at the right spot there. There you go to turn that off. But as for the rest of the articulation, it's all pretty standard, what you would expect for like a master grade or again like a metal build, but the articulation is really quite nice as you have some really nice shoulder extension there at the front, a double joint in the elbow, which will move all the way up like that, giving you some nice extension. And the other thing you'll notice is that it basically has no seam lines on it at all, which is really nice. The skirt armor will move individually. These little bits of side skirt armor that you do have will also move up and down. Now there is one other little part that I did notice does tend to fall out kind of easily, and that's the hand parts here, where you've got this thumb on a ball joint, which does also have a joint in the middle of that, but the fingers are just going to be swappable type fingers, and they do, at least for the closed fist fingers here, I'm noticing that they kind of fall out a little bit easily, so just be a bit careful with that. The head will go up to about there, and that's going to be about the extent of that before this long alien head at the back just kind of is running into the backpack, so it can't really go up any further than that at the moment. The legs have rotation there at the top, and then we can bring them up to the front. Double joint in the knee, of course, will give you a nice full bend with the separation of that knee armor there. These flaps here on the side will move a little bit. It's kind of more so for adding some parts onto there that we're going to use for the full armor. And then that piston inside the shin there, pretty cool feature of the design. It does move up and down like that when you move the ankle up and down, so you can move the ankle pretty far down there. Nice full detail up underneath the feet as well. The toe bend down, and you can bring the foot up pretty far there as well. Just really fantastic detail and color separation all throughout the design here on this one, as you can see. And then going around here onto the backpack, these side sections are just attached via small ball joints, so you can kind of adjust the angle slightly. Mostly it's just rotation here for those. And then these stabilizer bits here hold the handles for the beam sabers, so you can kind of extend this out like that and then slide out your beam saber handle like so, and then that will just close up once again there like that, which is pretty cool. As that's an excellent transition to talk about some of our included accessories. So of course we have our 2 beam saber handles and 2 beam saber effect parts, which are this really cool clear yellow like katana shape there. That's just going to fit into the handle like so, and makes for a pretty awesome looking beam saber there. And of course we've got 2 of those will fit into our hands. And for our hand option parts, aside from closed fists, you also have parts here for making open expressive hands, and then 2 different types of weapon holding hands. One's here just for holding the beam sabers, and then one's with the trigger finger extended there for holding onto the weapons, and you have those for the left and the right side. For our other weaponry, we have the kind of standard beam rifle here with the handle that does fold up and down there like that. And you do have an option part to replace this barrel with a longer type of barrel extension on that if you wanted to make that a longer style rifle, which I think does look pretty cool there. Then we also have our version of the clay bazooka here as well, which also does have the handle which will fold up. And this connection piece here on the top, you actually have 2 different options for that. One which will be for connecting onto the left side, the other is for if you wanted to connect it onto the right side. So you can choose, and that's going to attach onto the backpack using an adapter piece. That will work by removing this small little circular cap here on the end, and you're going to replace that with this piece right here, and that's how we can attach the clay bazooka there onto the backpack. And then our other rifle that we have included is this much larger, much more substantial rifle here compared to the size of our regular beam rifle. You can see this is definitely much larger. This one also has that same attachment point right here for attaching onto the backpack when not in use. This one has the handle that will fold back slightly, just basically for getting this in the hand a little bit easier. This front part here also moves slightly. You have the camera over here on the side. The design of this one certainly seems to be inspired by the Sinanju's beam rifle, and you'll see that more so here once we add on the rocket equipment. So this rocket launcher or rocket bazooka here can be used just on its own. The barrel can extend and you can use it just like that, with this one also having a little camera here on the side. And you do have a little clear blue part inside there as well, similar to what you have for this one. And then also at the front of the standard beam rifle, all have a little clear part there for the camera, clear blue part, although it's not usually very easy to see. But our rocket bazooka here, pretty cool in its design. This can be pulled out here at the back, but really the coolest part for this one is just going to be collapsing that in like so. And then again, yes, very similar to the Sinanju, this will attach onto the bottom of the long rifle here, just like that, making for a pretty awesome, pretty large looking weapon, which I'm wondering if it's really going to be able to hold up very well. We might have trouble holding this up. That said, we can always do a 2-handed grip on this, which I think should definitely make it a bit more easily to hold, but still a pretty awesome weapon here for sure. As for applying the full armor parts, it's basically just a matter of connecting parts onto there. There is a little bit of parts replacement that you have to do in a couple of sections. Like here for the chest, for example, it's basically this part which is going to attach onto the front, this part which is going to attach around onto the back, and there's a couple of parts that attach onto the top there for adding this armor around on the chest. And this is one of the few instances where you do have an option here for this. For the chest part, you either have this centerpiece or this one. I went with this centerpiece just because that's what's featured on the artwork for the kit. You do have an option there for that. As for our option parts, like for the leg, we have these larger parts which are going to fit around onto there, and additional parts that will fit onto the front and the back of the legs. So you just basically have a lot of parts that you're going to be adding on to make this into the full armor version. We've got our shoulder sections, which are pretty straightforward, how those attach onto the shoulder, basically just fit over the existing shoulder there. And then options here for the forearm, you have this one option here, which is basically just seems to be like a sort of shield sort of option there attached onto the back of the forearm, and this option which has these like small missiles in there, and this feature where this can extend out over the front of the hands, sort of similar to the beam brand of the Crossbone Gundam that is attached onto the back of the arm and then folds forward over the hands like that. So not much that we're going to add for skirt armor. Basically you just have these additional parts that we're going to add onto the side skirts, but the front and back skirts are just going to remain the same. And then for the backpack, we do have some pretty substantial additional parts that we're going to add onto there. This will basically attach onto the center of the backpack, gives us these over the shoulder cannons that will fit over like that, and these also extend out like so, kind of loosely. They don't really like necessarily click into place or anything, but you have that additional firepower which you'll be able to use there attached onto the backpack. And these much larger fuel tank slash stabilizers slash missile pods, as these have little doors here on the sides that will open up there like that, revealing the missiles inside. Unfortunately not molded in a separate color. Really would have been nice if that was a red part that goes inside there to make the heads of the missiles in red in there, so they would kind of stand out a bit more, but still a cool gimmick on there. And then yeah, for stabilization, you have these parts which will fold out here at the back, sort of like landing gear stabilizing legs that will just help it to not be falling over backwards when you have all this heavy equipment attached onto it. But that is only if you wanted to have the kit standing on its own. If you did want to have it on an action base, there is a couple of options. You have your standard action base adapter, which will plug up underneath the waist there and would be compatible with any like Bandai action base or anything. And then up underneath at the base of the backpack is what I plan on using. There's a part there that'll give you the action base adapter there underneath the backpack. That said, if you don't want to have that, there's an optional part there for that, which is just that detail part without the peg there on it, so you can choose. It's one option that you have there for that. Now, this will include an action base here, an included base, which is basically exactly the same as Bandai's Action Base 1, very, very similar to that. Now, at the time when I received this, I didn't get one of these included with mine. As you guys saw in the unboxing portion of the video, it was just the main box and then the separate box for the frame parts. But if you guys are going to be getting this from USA Gundam Store, we literally just got this delivered to us here today, and these are a bonus item that are going to be included with that. So you guys will get this base included with your kit, which will definitely come in handy for as big and hefty as a kit as this is. You are definitely going to want to have a good base to keep this up on. So let's go ahead and take a look at the kit in a few different poses here up on the base, both in just the standard form, and then we'll put all the parts on and take a look at it in full armor mode here, of course, as well. And I'll show you guys all the different weapon options and everything that we have with this. So it's really awesome that we have so many different weapon options aside from just the standard weapons like the beam rifle and the clay bazooka, but then we also have that long rifle and rocket bazooka included as well, which are really, really cool. And then of course you've got the beam sabers and the mounted weaponry on the backpack with the full armor having those missile pods and cannons on the backpack. So you've got a lot going on with this kit, and it's certainly quite the building process. It's going to take you a while. Again, if you guys saw the live build of this, you saw that just to build the main body, I didn't even quite finish the main body, and it still took over 2 hours. That's just putting the parts together. It still took even longer than that, of course, you know, clipping out all the parts and removing all the nubs and everything. Almost everything is undergated. All the gold parts are all undergated, and then even a lot of the other parts are undergated as well, so you don't have to worry about nub marks with this. As I said before, you also don't have to worry about seam lines, which is awesome. So that's why even just straight built right out of the box like this, it looks fantastic. That's why, again, I say it's very similar to like what you would expect from a metal build. But despite it having a ton of parts, the building process was pretty smooth. If you're wondering about like the quality of the plastic and all that, everything was really quite nice. It didn't have any like real fitting issues. There was a couple of bits that were maybe a little bit tight, mostly just due to the gold plating, but just if you're careful with it and just, use a little bit of pressure, you won't have any issue with a few of those little like smaller detail parts. Basically, overall, I would say it was a very comfortable building experience. It's a little bit awkward having to like build the frame first and then kind of go back and go through the building process just through like the main part of the manual. But again, just follow the manual and take your time with it and you'll be perfectly fine. You won't have any issues with this one, I wouldn't think. So really overall, very satisfying experience with this one. A really nice build, really nice looking finished product here with this. Just the details, the color separation on it, and then the posability and weapon options and everything. It just makes for a really impressive looking kit, whether you're going to have it like in just kind of a more standing neutral pose or an action pose. I think it looks really awesome. And so I gotta say, I'm definitely really impressed with this one. I wasn't initially actually even planning on building this one, but because I was able to receive one early, thought it'd be fun to build and share with you guys here. And then as I said, it just arrived here in stock at USA Gundam Store. So if you pre-ordered, you should be getting yours pretty soon. If you haven't ordered one yet, you can definitely check it out there on the website. The link will be down in the video description below. But glad that I was able to build this one and share it with you guys. And let me know if you have any other further questions about this in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about it. I think it's pretty awesome, but as always, would love to hear what you guys think. So let me know. And if you wouldn't mind leaving a like while you're here, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you're not subscribed yet, you can subscribe just right down there below the video. And as always, guys, just thank you so much for all of your support. Hope you enjoyed taking a look at this kit here today. Until next time, hope y'all are doing well. See you later. Bye, guys.